in their 40s as well. We've interviewed people on here. We've got June Andrews with us today. And June trained and worked as a nurse, and she's now an expert in dementia care. And she's got some advice today that, well, I genuinely, June, wish, reading all your notes and all your tips, I wish I'd known a lot of these when my dad had Alzheimer's, particularly in the very early stages, because we were, as a family, relieved to get a diagnosis, having spent a couple of years probably knowing that things weren't right, some of his behaviour was quite strange. And so to have that diagnosis, you go, oh, that's why. And then what? Then you're kind of left, aren't you? You don't know where to go from there. Do you find that with a lot of people you talk to?
Yes, a huge number of people with dementia and also their families have told us that it is a relief to get an explanation for why things have been so strange, but often they're not given the information that they need at that time. It is getting better, but as people get diagnosed earlier and earlier, there's more and more useful information that they could be told. And one of the problems is that health and social care worker education hasn't caught up with it. So sometimes the doctor or the nurse or the social worker you're with doesn't actually know the sorts of things that are in this book. So while we're catching up with that kind of education, families need to have that information for themselves.
Now, the book is called Dementia, the One-Stop Guide, and you say that you have written this in an unsentimental, unemotional way. What do you mean by that?
Well, sometimes I find when people are writing about dementia, the fact that it is such a difficult subject means that the books are in some ways quite gloomy. And it's difficult, but it's important to be practical and to look forward to what people can do rather than emphasising what they can't.
And actually, it's so lovely to hear you say that, because I always say, you know, you can live very well with dementia. I mean, obviously, a lot of people, the decline can be very fast, but for my dad, a lot of people that I know, it was a very slow decline and it was quite manageable. If somebody got that diagnosis today, let's start at the very beginning, if they get that diagnosis today, what's the first thing you would tell them to do in terms of practical advice?
It really depends at what stage you get the diagnosis, because still some people never get a diagnosis and some only get diagnosed very close to the end of their lives. But if it's an early stage, then what you should do is get as much information as possible about what you can do to keep yourselves well. And that includes information for the people who are going to be looking after you, the carers, as well as yourself. One really important thing is to get your legal affairs in order. A power of attorney is terribly important, and people sometimes don't like to think about that, but it can make such a difference as time goes on. Another thing is to look at the fact that you can probably live quite well for some of the time, so get that bucket list out and do all the interesting things you had planned to do.
And take pictures.
Take pictures.
Yeah, I think that's good. Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. 62% of those diagnosed has that. Other types of dementia, vascular dementia, 17%. Mixed dementia, 10%. If someone gets to the age of 80, their chance of getting dementia is 4%. But then if they live to 90, that goes up to 50%. So this is only going to get worse as the years go on.
Well, because we're an ageing population, it means that more people are going to have it. I plan to be 90 years old, so by the time I'm 90, I've got a 50% chance of having dementia. So I want to know what I can do now, at this stage, to try and make the symptoms
well, those practical tips, because I think, Ruth, you find these very, very interesting.
I found these really interesting. I said I wish I'd known a lot of them. Right, let's start with increase lighting.
Why?
Older people need 2 or 3 times as much light as younger people. And most of the time it's not a problem because you increase the light or put on your glasses. But people with dementia might not think to do that. So if you increase the lighting in your their houses, then you make things better straight away.
So brighter bulbs.
Well, why are mirrors a problem?
When I look in the mirror, when I'm 90, if I have dementia, I'm going to expect to see myself as I am now today. And when I see a little old lady looking back at me, I'll be disconcerted. I might think it's a window and that some stranger is looking at me, so I might be disconcerted. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for some people.
Well, I found this fascinating, because you say, and other reflective surfaces like windows, because my dad started closing all the curtains really early in the day, in the middle of the summer. And when we asked him about it, he said, I think there's someone in the garden looking at me. So when I read that today, it was like a light bulb going off. I thought maybe he saw his reflection and he thought someone was watching him in the garden.
Yes, I've had that before, that exact experience.
Yeah. So mirrors take them away then, you think? If it's
only if the person's disturbed,
someone,
if they're if they're upset, see if that's maybe the issue. You sometimes have to be a bit of a detective to try and work out what the problem is.
And even floors can be a problem. Avoid shiny floors.
One thing you want to avoid if you've got dementia is going to hospital, and a common reason for going to hospital is a fall. And when someone with dementia is having problems with depth perception, the glare off a shiny floor might look as if it's icy or wet, so they alter their gait, and when you don't walk properly, you're more likely to fall over, and we really want to avoid falls.
If unfortunately something does happen, you fall, or for whatever reason you have to go, the person with dementia has to go into hospital, what's your advice to the families?
If the family has got the capacity, go with them, be with them. Stay by their side and make sure that they don't get dehydrated, make sure they get the right medication, help the nurses and doctors to look after them. During interviews, don't answer for them, but afterwards help explain to the staff, no, they don't live where they said they lived. You know, the story that they're telling is not quite right.
My dad used to tell you the most incredible stories, and they were very believable. And we always kind of run behind him, going, he's not really a racing driver. He's never a racing driver.
But on that subject, and sometimes he would insist he was to the point where that maybe sounds a wee bit aggressive. And I know some people can get aggressive. Do you enter into an argument? Do you contradict?
Well, in the book there are hints about this, but the thing you have to realise is everyone is different, and if it's a person who used to be aggressive, that's a different story. But if there's one tip, it's avoid arguing. I was hearing about a lady this week who looks at the television and she thinks that she knows you from school. Now, her family might want to say, that can't possibly be true. It's the wrong age group and they live in a different part of the country. But actually just to accept that and distract them and not worry about it is
June,
better.
I wish I'd done that. So, because my dad used to do that a lot, and I thought I was helping him by trying to make him remember. And I used to say, no, Dad, you can't know those people because, you know, they wouldn't have been born. And I used to try and talk him logically through. And I just wish somebody had said to me, just go, how lovely, that's nice. It would have been so much easier for all of us.
And is it true, should you be training your mind, should you be keeping your mind active? Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
Well, there's certainly research that shows that people who speak 2 languages have symptoms later. And I met a family in Washington recently where all the children have Alzheimer's, and the ones who have college education didn't get their symptoms till 10 years later than the ones who didn't have college education. So using your mind really does help, and it's never too late to start.
Company's important, gossip's important, having a cup of tea with other people, socialising.
Exercise, and that's where you can help people with dementia, because if you know someone who's got that, go and visit them, have a cup of tea, take them for a walk, have fun. It's later than you think, so enjoy yourself.
And the Alzheimer's Society have this amazing thing, Dementia Friends, which is a lovely campaign to get caught up in. June, well done you.
It's fascinating. Dementia, the one-stop guide, and it is very practical. You said it's not emotional, it's a very practical guide, and I thought I would have found that very useful with my dad. Thank you. It's been great to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.